The January 6th Select Committee hearing divides two Illinois Republican congressmen, plus a long-awaited bipartisan agreement on infrastructure seems to be closer. That and much more in our Spotlight Politics. And joining us tonight are familiar faces, Heather Cherone and Amanda Vinicky. Let's start off with that hearing yesterday. We heard a lot of emotional testimony, including some remarks and questions from Illinois Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Let's take a listen.
You talk about the impact of that day. But you guys won. You guys held. You know, democracies are not defined by our bad days. We're defined by how we come back from bad days.
We've talked to Kinzinger a lot since this. We talked to him on the 6th that night, and he was clearly shaken and clearly emotional about what happened that day. So he found himself on this committee. Amanda Vinicky, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi appointed him on Sunday. Remind us how he got on the committee, because he wasn't on it at first.
Well, yeah, this is why he's got the moniker from Republican leader McCarthy that he's a Pelosi member now, because he was appointed by the Democratic speaker versus by the GOP leader. And that's unheard of. Also unheard of, Pelosi refusing to sit members of a minority party on a select committee. Much of this is unprecedented, the continuation of so much unprecedented under President Donald Trump's term. And I think really this is a carryover of that, of course, and a carryover of the friction that you have in the Republican Party, a very deep soul searching for, I think, some members, including Kinzinger. So that's how he got on the committee. And by the way, after another Illinois Republican, Rodney Davis, who had been chosen by the Republican leader to be a member, instead didn't take his seat because Pelosi, as I had noted, rejected some others. So this is, I think, shows, yes, this is partisan. Of course it is. It is nonetheless also a very significant emotional issue. I think I don't know how you can watch videos of what happened on January 6th and not see that.
Absolutely, and more videos come out in some of these federal cases. As testimony was happening inside the Capitol, Heather, members of the GOP were outside blaming Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Democrats for security issues. Take a look at what Congressman Rodney Davis, who, as Amanda said, was initially selected by McCarthy to be on that committee, but then pulled, said about blocking fixes to Capitol security.
They can't get the security posture where they think it is up to par before they have to go to political appointees. We tried to fix this over the last few years, and the Democrats have stopped us every single step of the way.
Heather, what's he talking about here, this sort of argument about security at the Capitol and kind of being stonewalled?
Well, they're trying to change the subject from what happened on January 6th to a question about who was responsible for security at the Capitol, and they're trying to lay that on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. However, that does not really address the fact that it was a mob of pro-Trump protesters that stormed the Capitol, and there's no doubt that there are questions about how the Capitol was protected and whether the Capitol Police had the proper gear and backup. However, that is really not what is at issue with this committee, and is really an attempt to change the subject from the fact that these people stormed the Capitol chanting to hang former Vice President Mike Pence and trying to look for Nancy Pelosi. It remains to be seen whether that argument will gain any traction.
And it also,
here I have, sorry, Paris, just briefly here, also in those same remarks, Congressman Davis said, you know, it's unfortunate that I can't be there asking questions, which is another point that does not particularly ring true, because again, repeating, of course, he could have been. He was appointed and essentially chose not to take that step. And that is interesting because his name is one that is mentioned, depending on how the congressional map is drawn, as a potential candidate for governor against Democrat presumed nominee J.B. Pritzker. And further, you have Kinzinger's political future up for grabs. He's facing a pro-Trump Republican candidate again, depending on how these districts are drawn. And he made a point during the hearing, besides just that emotion that you saw, to say, I am a conservative Republican.
And let's also say that some of the political arguments are disingenuous because the House initially took up a vote to have a bipartisan committee like the 9/11 Commission investigate this, and it was defeated largely because it was opposed by all but about 35 Republicans. Let's hear some of the testimony from the police officers yesterday.
I feel myself losing oxygen and recall thinking to myself, this is how I'm going to die.
No one had ever called me a while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer.
The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful.
A lot of anger there, and you do still see some mocking in certain conservative media circles, some of the television personalities saying that the performances are worthy of an Academy Award. Heather, what are the possible consequences of testifying before Congress? And do you think how does this play, I guess, among mainstream America?
Well, it's really startling to see these police officers who were physically assaulted and really traumatized during the riot on January 6th be held up for ridicule for having an emotional reaction to those incidents. And we heard from Officer Michael FANONE, who then shared a voicemail that he got, which was filled with slurs and other attacks. And it has to make people think twice before they testify before Congress to know that this is what they're signing up for. All three of those officers said they were aware that they would be mocked, that they would be ridiculed, but that they did so anyway because they felt that it was important that they continue to uphold their oaths as police officers and to the Constitution.
All right, let's move on to.
You don't see often. Oh, sorry. You don't often see in congressional panels those giving testimony,
that kind of emotion,
pointing their fingers at members of Congress, as you did with those officers.
Right.
They cast shame on the GOP.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to news that's still developing in Washington, D.C., a bipartisan agreement on infrastructure. Let's hear what President Biden says about this.
Looks like we reached a bipartisan agreement on infrastructure, fancy word for bridges, roads.
And bipartisan, we mean Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says just a few hours ago, and in fact, I think he voted the way he tweeted he was going to vote. He has a yes vote in moving forward on this legislation. Heather, how did that come to be?
Well, there was an agreement that America's infrastructure is literally crumbling, and there are billions, tens of billions of dollars in this bill earmarked for roads and bridges and other necessary things. Illinois especially stands to get a lot of money to replace lead service lines that you heard me talk a little bit about before. Chicago has more lead service lines than anywhere else in the nation, so you better believe Mayor Lightfoot and Governor J.B. Pritzker are keeping a close eye on this bill's passage, because there's no way that the city or the state could afford to foot the bill to replace these lead service lines, which are really imperiling the safety of the city and the state's drinking water.
And, you know, this is going to be a tenuous coalition here because you're going to have senators and Congress people that believe it's too much spending and then others that believe it's not nearly enough. So, Amanda, what do you think the final package is going to look like once it gets through that legislative meat grinder?
Once, if, when.
If, right.
Certainly this vote was a major step given the lack of bipartisanship that has been a hallmark of Washington for so long. So it's significant. It is, however, but one step, and also but one chamber. From what I gather, it is a deal, but it's not a deal that is written on paper yet. So you could see further fights arise. And then, of course, you got to have the House agree, and the dynamics are much different. So not a done deal yet.
All right, let's move to some local news. Heather, there's been a lot of controversy around a proposed Chicago gang database, or a database that has supposedly sort of been out there, although the police dispute whether it's really a gang database. So there was some debate about it today in Council. Talk about that.
Yes. So more than 2 years ago, the city's Inspector General, Joseph Ferguson, said this database was full of flawed records that disproportionately targeted Black and Latino Chicagoans. And he called on the police department to immediately craft a new database that protected people's rights and was useful for the police. 2 years later, the police department acknowledges they're still using that flawed data, and they say they don't have any choice because they have to use it to stop retaliatory gang violence. However, the new database won't be online until September at the earliest, but it's not clear how people will be listed in the database, precisely how they will get out of the database if it's a mistake, and exactly how much it will cost the city. So we have a lot of questions remaining about this very serious issue, which we know has had a disproportionate impact on the Latino community because it used to be accessible by federal immigration agents, and there were suggestions that people were deported because of their inclusion in it.
And there's been a lot of questions over the year, Amanda, on the process for awarding permits to open up a marijuana dispensary. Has the state finally figured these kinks out?
That's another one that we will see. I mean, nothing has gone as planned in this process. And so we might learn soon enough, because there will be a series of 3 lotteries to begin to roll out actually an increased number of licenses. What was going to be 75 is now 185. And to 3 separate groups, essentially. A whole lot more of these applicants will have an opportunity to get one of these licenses to sell marijuana in the state of Illinois. And that is huge. You're selling green, but you're basically pocketing a different type of green, as in cash, if you get one of these, is the thought. But we will have the first lottery tomorrow, and I think there are still a whole lot of misgivings as to whether it will meet the intent of bringing more people that are from communities or who have been directly impacted by the war on drugs, particularly people of color and entrepreneurs of color wanting to get into the cannabis industry, whether that is a goal that is going to be met or whether these applicants still have a lot of pocketed individuals with clout.
I know a lot of applicants believe it's high time that they're awarded some of these permits. I'm sorry. All right,
I liked it.
we're gonna end on that note. Fortunately, thanks to Heather and Amanda as always.